Hello and welcome to a Sticky Trigger chat. My name is Crinji. I'm joined by writer and video producer for Sticky Trigger, Hope Museshake Corrigan. Thank you so much for joining me, Hope.
Thank you for having me.
We're coming together to talk a little bit about Bethesda and Prey and what happened following Prey's release and the reviews that came out for Prey, actually. So IGN, before we get into this story, actually, I probably should clarify. Hope, you have been known to write for IGN.
Yeah, I write news for IGN. At the moment, I don't write anything else. So I haven't done any reviews or anything like that, so I can't really speak to how that goes. But yeah, I freelance for them and I write news.
So IGN reviewed Prey, it was a review in progress at some point, obviously, but they published a full review of Prey. I believe the reviewer was Dan Stapleton, and on PC he gave the game a 4.0 out of 10. And the reason was that there was a game-breaking bug that meant he couldn't finish the game, and so it was an unfortunate situation of technical issues bogging down the game. Since then, the review has been updated to be an 8.0 out of 10 after Bethesda was very quick to patch Prey. Hope, why on earth is re-reviewing games kind of been accepted by media and by audiences?
Well, I think nowadays the big difference is that games are much more readily patchable. So whereas, 10, 15 years ago, a game may not receive a patch or it may not be available to everyone who has the game, whereas nowadays, if you bought the game, there's a pretty big chance that you're going to have patch availability because you're going to have an internet connection and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, an Xbox original, for example, games wouldn't really get patched on that. I also think that reviews are there in part to help people make purchasing decisions. So I think if a game does have a patch that changes it significantly and is likely to be available to people who may purchase the game, it makes sense to update the review to reflect that rather than just say, oh, it was broken. Because if it's not broken anymore, it may not be so true to have such a low review score.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Also, speaking a little bit more to the implications of re-reviewing, do you think that IGN would do well to continue updating their reviews if significant patches were to come to Prey? At what point do you think that outlets should be mindful of re-reviewing games? Is it something that should happen often, or maybe something that is a little bit less common?
I think that it definitely depends on the severity of the patch. And also, so for example, if there is a game-breaking bug, but, maybe a very small percentage of people have it, it may not be that big of a deal on your review. Whereas, what Prey was talking about was quite severe. There's also the time period that the game is released, because there's not much point going back and, re-reviewing games from over a year ago, I'd say. Because by then people are going to have a fairly good idea of what to expect from that game. But for a new review, I think if they're being patched within the first couple of months, I think it's fairly important from the perspective of giving, like I said before, consumers a well-rounded opinion of what the game is going to be like if they buy it. I think it's almost responsible. Yeah,
that's a fair point. Another huge part of this story is how this sort of affects Bethesda's image. A while ago, it might have been a year or so at this point, Bethesda came out and said, hey, we're not going to be giving super early review copies of our games to press because we want everyone... The press statement was, we want everyone to experience the game at the same time. But I believe it happened with Skyrim Special Edition and with Doom and Dishonored 2, and they kind of got away with it in those situations because the games came out and were technically fine, were also just impressive games. How does this sort of change that in your eyes, do you think?
Well, I've never really thought that was a great decision on Bethesda's part.
Yeah.
Because, I'm a reviewer sometimes and I like to get games early. But also, again, from the perspective of informing consumers, it helps if you've got a little bit of time before launch to let people know. Obviously, when they've had games that have been totally fine and they've been able to be oh guys, it'll be fine. The games are going to be fine. Don't worry about it, guys. They're going to be fine. And it has been okay. That it's come out, fairly okay for them. But with this one, not giving it to people beforehand and then it being so broken almost looks like they were trying to cover something up to get better sales. And look, I don't think that they were necessarily doing that, but it doesn't look good in the public eye.
No, I agree, and I think that moving forward, like their upcoming release of Skyrim on the Nintendo Switch, I doubt it'd be difficult. It'd be easy to mess up a port. I think I got that sense out the door, right? Whatever. They can't mess up a port. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's really unlikely they're going to have this happen to them twice, which is probably going to be their saving grace, because if they did, it would probably be, like, I'd imagine it would be a pretty big blow to their reputation.
Do you think that there'd be any sort of large-scale reaction from audiences and from media if they mess this up again, like beyond Skyrim Special Edition, if they end up bringing something out towards the end of this year or early next year? Is there something that media might do, like, for example, just not review, outside of the big outlets, of course? Do you think that there'd be any big blowback?
Look, media have in the past, like, sites have stopped reviewing game companies if they've believed them to be doing shady business, and I would not be surprised if that kind of thing happens. But Bethesda has a lot of good faith. Like, they're a huge game company. You would lose a lot to not review their games as well. So it would be a pretty big call. I think they'd have to mess up pretty heavily. If they broke another game and they released it like this, I think there would definitely be a lot of speculation from the industry and consumers, but I don't think it would necessarily... Their reputation would take a hit, but I don't think it would take that much of a hit. I think it probably sounds really dumb, but I think it would take them 3 times to get that bad. Oh,
God. Here's to hoping that it doesn't happen 3 times in a row. Hope, thank you so much for joining me to speak about what's been happening with Bethesda and with Prey.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Viewers, thank you so much for watching. This is kind of a new format that we're going to be trying out over the coming weeks and months. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a comment on this video. You can subscribe to the Sticky Trigger YouTube channel at youtube.com/StickyTrigger. Check out the website, stickytrigger.com, and chat to us on Twitter, where you'll find us as @StickyTriggerAU. But for now, that's all from us. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.